Welcome to the Craft of Coaching podcast, where we dive into what it truly takes to become a skilled, confident life coach. I'm your host, Kate, head of the CLCC, or Certified Life Coach Collective, an ICF-Accredited Level 1 coach training program. We combine courage, coaching, and community to offer you more than just a training program, but a life-changing experience where you use your own personal transformation as the learning ground for supporting your clients. On this podcast, we explore how you can use coaching skills to support your clients or expand your own growth, all grounded in evidence-based coaching practices. Learn more about our program and get free resources for becoming a life coach at teamclcc.com. And now, here's today's episode. All right, I'm going to try not to soapbox too much with this episode, but I may have my moments. Please forgive me. Today, I'm going to talk about why CLCC is ICF accredited. And in particular, I'm going to be speaking about that from the perspective of whether or not someone considering a coach training program should consider an ICF accredited coach training program. So first thing, CLCC, when we first started, we were not program accredited. We based all of our content off of the ICF Core Competencies, and then we pursued a path of a continuing education credit. At the time when the program started, my reasoning for that was, for sure, I wanted it to be grounded in the core competencies and in some standardization, which I think is important for the coaching industry. But I didn't really know where people were going to go with it. And even today, even though we are now an accredited program, CLCC still has graduates who go off and create flourishing, thriving coaching businesses, and they elect not to get an ICF credential. Now, there's a lot of terms that I've just thrown out, so I'm going to parse some of them apart, okay? So first thing, programs are accredited, individuals are credentialed or certified. It's very similar to how if somebody wants to become a therapist, they can go to any school of their choosing, and I believe that you have to go to an accredited school, an institution of higher learning that has accreditation. And then after you complete your, college and graduate education, you go into a marriage and family therapy program for graduate school, that just gives you the degree, the training. You then have to actually become licensed as a therapist. Coaching works in a similar way. You can attend any training program you want, just like with higher education, hopefully one that's accredited, right? And after you complete your training in coaching, if you want to, you can go get your certification or credential from the International Coaching Federation. There are multiple accrediting bodies or credentialing bodies that are out there for both coaching education as well as for credentialing of individuals, but the ICF is the most well-known. So programs are accredited, individuals are certified or credentialed. Now, the ICF has always provided multiple pathways for someone to get an ICF credential. And in fact, the way that I myself first got my ICF credential, because I went to an unaccredited training program, which I gotta say caused me some headaches later when I went to get my ICF credential, because I had to pull together this portfolio of different trainings that I had undertaken. But you always have had the option to get an ICF certification, even via the portfolio path. It's just more work. But the CLCC program became ICF accredited because we wanted to formalize the process. Sometimes people were asking, are you ICF accredited? And it always felt, like we're being completely honest in the fact that, we were already exceeding the standards in our training program for an ICF credential. But the fact that we didn't have that stamp for some people made them a little nervous, and I can kind of understand that. So right now, the coaching industry, as of me recording this, has no governing body. There's no centralized licensure. ICF is the most recognized, but it's not the only option. You do not have to get your ICF certification after you finish a training program, okay? But with all this, there comes other confusion, because one of the things that I've noticed, particularly in recent years, is that more and more coach training programs are opening up and they're saying, we're ICF accredited. And they're not actually. They have what is called CCEs or CEUs. CCEs, continuing coach education, or CEU, continuing education units. Sometimes those terms get thrown around. But essentially, they are weekend programs sometimes, maybe sometimes for a couple months. They are not, in fact, programs that have been looked at with a fine-tooth comb end to end by the International Coaching Federation. And one way that you can definitely tell that a program that's saying that they're accredited is only CCE or CEU, first of all, they'll say CCE accredited, and they're throwing around acronyms, and it makes it sound all fancy and like they've got their stuff together, but they don't. Another way that you can tell if they're not saying CCE is look at how many training hours are required, because there's a certain number of training hours that you have to have gone through in your training program to get your ACC, PCC, or MCC, which are the different credentialing tiers that the ICF offers. So sometimes I get a lot of fatigue with the misinformation circulating online. I find it very predatory. I know that there are coaches every single day who are paying thousands of dollars for programs that are claiming to be accredited and they're by the ICF, and they're not in the way the coaches think. I also unfortunately hear stories of programs that advertise themselves as accredited, and they maybe do have an accredited educational system, but what they do is they advertise as accredited. And then when the coach says, I'm kind of interested, they say, great, well, you can get a basic tier of coach training for this price, which is a lot lower, or you can pay a lot more for the ICF accredited coach training. Well, come on, like they pull you in by going, we're really legit, we're accredited, all the things. And then they're not actually, okay? I've also seen some coach training programs that are out there that say, well, we don't get ICF accreditation because, we do some things that are different than the ICF. Well, what are they doing differently than the ICF would be the question I hope a critical thinker would ask. Because if you look at the ICF Core Competencies, it's pretty basic stuff. The ICF doesn't say that you have to coach the way they want you to coach, and the ICF actually does not dictate the topics that we cover to be accredited. The ICF just basically says we want to make sure that your facilitators have the appropriate level of experience. We want to monitor how many synchronous versus asynchronous hours you're putting people through, so that you don't get situations where somebody passes a coach training and nobody's ever actually had contact with an instructor and they've only done virtual learning, with PowerPoint slides or something. They want to make sure that you're receiving feedback on your coaching, which I actually think this is the biggest reason those programs don't want to become accredited. Because if you are a fully accredited program, there's a certain number of times for each individual student that you are required to give verbal and written feedback. And I think a lot of those programs, they don't want to have to take the time to do that, because then you have to pay facilitators, you have to take the time and things like that to meet with each student. So a lot of these programs, when they say, well, we do things differently, that's why we're not accredited. It's kind of like, calling bullshit. I think that there's a reason why they're not accredited, and it mostly has to do with they would have to spend more time with their students. The ICF also looks at diversity, equity, and inclusion, and requires that programs that are accredited by them have those components. The ICF also wants to know, for instance, your refund policy. I think that's another reason why some of these air quotes coach training programs that are out there that are like, we don't do the ICF thing because we're so different. I think a lot of them have refund policies where they really don't like to be transparent about the fact that they're charging you $20,000 for a program that as soon as you sign on the dotted line, that's it, your money's gone. CLCC has a refund policy that is tied to the date of when you start. So There can be these misleading claims out there that you don't really need an ICF accredited training program. There can also be misleading claims suggesting that only ICF accredited programs will lead to your success. I'm not saying either of those things. I am someone who did not get training from an ICF accredited program, and I have found success as a coach. And at the same time, I also think that you don't want to go completely in the other direction and say that you don't even need to bother with anything ICF related. The International Coaching Federation is doing something that I think is noble. They're trying to standardize things. They're trying to make sure, frankly, that coaching, which has such value, does not get dragged down. Okay? So if you wanted to become ICF credentialed and you wanted to attend an ICF accredited program, multiple tracks exist. At the time that we first became accredited, the ICF had these different tracks, the ACTP, the ACSTH, and the portfolio path. And people were very confused about what each of these paths meant. Now, there are tracks that are level 1 training programs, level 2 training programs, and level 3 training programs. And essentially these tiers of training programs, each one requires more training and more client hours, and they're tied to the ACC, PCC, and MCC. If you want to get your ACC credential, which is what the majority of all coaches get, you want a level 1 training program. If you want to get your PCC, which is a lot fewer coaches, but there are some, you want a level 2. And if you want to get your MCC, you want a level 3 program. Most coaches, however, and I would even agree with this, start with a level 1 program. I think if you start with a level 3 program because you say to yourself, I want my MCC, it's too far in the future. First of all, you don't actually know that you want your MCC yet. You might really think you know, but you don't know yet. Give yourself the gift of time to be able to go into coaching, experiment with it, etc. Next thing, any kind of level 3 program, I'm sure they're very high value, but they are really intensive. I mean, you're taking on coaching at that point like it is a degree program. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of money and many hundreds of client hours. Whereas I think, this is my personal opinion and what I advise, start with a level 1 program, keep it simple, move your way through that level 1 program, start accruing your coaching hours, and later you can add additional training hours to get a PCC or an MCC if you would like to. So there's competencies that are here, there's rigor that's here, but you really have to look for an ICF accredited program, level 1, level 2, or level 3. Do not get hoodwinked by these people saying we're accredited and they only offer a CCE. CCE is for continuing coach education. And if you even look that up on the ICF website, you are going to find that they will say that CCEs are intended for coaches who have already received training, they've already gotten a credential, and they're just renewing their ICF credential. Now, all of that having been said, I want to differentiate between credentialing and training. I have met therapists who completed MFT programs and they say things like, I feel like I never was actually taught therapy. I had to learn it on the fly when I was doing my clinical hours. I've met therapists who loved the training programs that they were part of. The credentialing is actually a lesser concern, as is the type of training and the mastery of coaching that you have under your belt. Because in the real world, I have never, and I'm talking, I have been a coach since 2006, I have never, not even one time, had anyone ask me if I had my ACC, PCC, or MCC. I have never, not even one time, had a client ask me. When I say no one has ever asked me, I'm referring to clients. I've never had anyone, a client, ask me, where did you get your training? Unless they were interested in becoming a coach. That's it. So your success as a coach, your ability to work with clients is not going to be dependent on where you got your training. It's not like the Ivy Leagues where if you can drop that you went to Yale or Dartmouth or something like that, it's got this cachet. Okay, so that's one thing. Two, do you have a undergraduate, a graduate, or a master's? Like, these are not questions clients are asking. So the ACC, PCC, MCC, the clients are usually not aware of these differentiations, and they are usually not asking. I personally have just never had the experience of a client asking me that when they're trying to figure out whether or not they want to work with me. What clients do want to know is that you did receive training. I do think receiving training is important. And clients want to know how masterful you are at working with them. Clients want to know if you understand the problems that they face and the solutions that they desire. Clients want to know if you are empathetic, non-judgmental, yet at the same time willing to hold them accountable, reflect what you see, and move them and collaborate with them through the gaps between where they are currently and where they're trying to go. So as you're making decisions about where do I want to be in terms of coaching, what kind of training do I want to receive, I would really encourage you to think about the experience that you want to have, both personally and professionally, the resources that are going to be included, and how you're going to talk about and communicate in your messaging your desire to help clients with problems that they face and help them to find their way to the solutions that they desire. And that has always been my mentality, and that's why the CLCC program is really rooted in not just we'll teach you the coaching skill set, but also your personal growth is at the forefront of what we do. I often think CLCC is very much like a training program meets personal mastermind. The community element is really important in our program. If you prefer to be off by yourself when you're learning and you don't really want to have to interact with other people, our program would not be for you. Now, we have a lot of introverts who come to our program, and I myself identify as an introvert. I need my alone time. Big, loud, crowded spaces, not for me. And at the same time, the other introverts tend to find each other in our program. So I'm not saying that community means you're constantly having to talk to people or like people are always pinging you, but I am saying that there's a community element that we really value. And the reason we value it is because when you finish coach training, this community is going to be part of what supports you in building your business, in getting client referrals, in everything that comes after. CLCC also includes marketing training as part of the training program. We give you those marketing resources because, again, I really believe in coaching. I really believe that coaching has profoundly changed my life, and I've seen how it's changed the lives of my clients. Because I believe in coaching, I want you to be set up for success as a coach. For me, it's not about a money grab. This program is not about how can we extract as much as possible from you while giving as little as possible. We're ICF accredited and happy to suit up and show up for the number of times that you will need to receive feedback on your coaching, verbal and written. We want you to develop your own unique coaching style. We want you to participate in skill drills. We want you to explore experimental ways of coaching that maybe you've never considered before. So there are a lot of things that go into the experience of being part of a training program. And I think that, again, certification and credentials and accolades and titles and all of that, that's not the most important thing. Training is. What matters really is, can you help your own clients, and can you do your own personal, and are you doing really your own personal growth work? That's why we emphasize that inner work. It's how you hold a stronger space for others. So CLCC, in securing our accreditation, we're going to keep doing what we've always done, which is training great coaches. And now I'm always happy to share that we added that check mark. We went from being a CCE-based ICF credential or ICF competency-based program to full ICF accreditation for those who want it. Makes it easier for our graduates to get their credential after they graduate. And I think it also really helps people to know that our program has been evaluated end to end, every single document, every single lesson, every single facilitator, all of it has been evaluated and approved. so you know you're getting a quality education, not just because I have a slick sales page, but because we really mean it. All right, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Before you go, would you help us out and take a moment to give us a rating in iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're listening? It really helps us get the word out to other listeners. And before you go today, would you like free resources to support your coaching journey? Whether you're considering becoming a coach or you want advanced coach skills training, access our coaching resource library at teamclcc.com. Again, that's teamclcc.com. Can't wait to connect with you. And again, thanks for listening.